Happy Thursday, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Office Hours Live. For those of you joining for the first time, my name is Kamara Toffolo. I'm a resume writer, LinkedIn consultant, and job search strategist who helps established professionals dare to do work differently and land great fitting gigs. Really excited for this episode of Office Hours. We have a great guest, Jack Kelly, joining us. And I was just on Jack's live show last week as well. So we're getting to chat twice in quick succession, and we always have a great time. So Jack is a longtime recruiter, and he's the founder and CEO of WeCruitr, which is really aiming to help job seekers during this difficult time. But Jack is also a senior contributing writer at Forbes. He's written some great articles, especially about the future of work, which is what we're discussing tonight. He's been a recruiter himself for, he just told me, 25 years. And he's also the managing director of Compliance Search Group, which has successfully placed over 1,000 compliance leaders in the past 10 years, which is huge. So as mentioned, Jack also has his own live show, Let's Go Live with Jack Kelly, and that airs on YouTube and LinkedIn, just like Office Hours does. And yeah, we just have a great evening lined up for everybody. We've had a bunch of pre-submitted questions. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Jack into the stream so we can get started on answering all of your questions. Hello, Jack.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kamara. This is awesome. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for being here. It's great to see you again.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for joining us. Would love to hear where everybody is tuning in from. So if you could let us know in the chat on YouTube, or let us know in the comments on LinkedIn. That would be great. Let us know where you're from. And please do ask your questions in the chat and comments as we go along. So, Jack.
Yes.
The future of work is permanently changed with the pandemic. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, in Forbes, you've been writing a lot about the future of work. You talked about Salesforce, Spotify, Amazon, how they're permanently changing the way we work and leading the charge. So how is the workplace really changing for us employees in North America these days?
You know, it's interesting because going through the pandemic, it's so easy to get stuck in the doom and the gloom and how bad everything is. And it is bad for a lot of people. You know, I think it's just different degrees of badness across the board. So we tend to forget that we'll get by this. It's not going to last forever. And what I feel is going to happen, in my opinion, it's going to be a drastic change, but for the good. And for instance, just with Kamara's referencing, Spotify and Salesforce, two major tech firms, basically, one said, Salesforce is saying 9 to 5 is dead. I love that. Very, very bold statement from a company saying like 9 to 5 is dead, and they're going to have their employees come in 1 to 3 days a week. Spotify is like, basically, you could work anywhere you want, work anytime you want. We trust you. And if you think of that, that's just earth shaking. You know, there's no more. It may not be any more like 9 to 5 grinding in the commute. Like for me to go from New Jersey to Manhattan, it's going to take an hour and a half and, you know, horrible traffic, an hour and a half back. You know, I could work from home if I want. I could work remotely. So that is, to me, it's so exciting because it's so liberating. I think it's going to help mental health. It's going to make people less anxious and stressed out. I think it's going to help families because if you have two parents or partners who are working and they're both doing this, how they're taking care of the kids, it's such agita. And that if you don't have it, I think it's just going to be great for society.
I couldn't agree more. Like we were chatting about this before, how we're both super excited about the future and really the current way that work is now. And I love that commutes are pretty much a thing of the past because I certainly don't miss that from when I was in corporate and being on the train and every day and losing all that time. But I think you nailed it with saying it's liberating. I love that word. Yeah. I love it.
Can I give you a real life example?
Yeah.
So for like 20 years. So not only, I started my search firm and I'm the CEO of it. And whenever you start a business and run a business, it's just not like non-ending work. And so for years, putting in crazy hours, doing the commute back and forth. And then like I had this epiphany, and I'm like, oh my God, my kids are just going to know me as that tired, cranky guy who comes home and plops on the couch, and that's all they're going to know. So I actually, and this happened pre-COVID, so I opened up an office in my local, in where I live, and I was able to like take my daughter to school, pick her up from school, be at events with my son, and it was really awesome. But to be very frank, I definitely lost business though. It was a big difference because you didn't have the remote, you didn't have the Zoom, you didn't have all that. So being out of New York, it really suffered, and it was a trade-off. But now moving forward, people aren't going to have that problem, and it makes a big difference. I mean, I could have had, if you turn back the clock and I didn't have that commute, it would have been such a different thing. My life would have been so much nicer. There wouldn't have been as much stress on my wife. You know what I mean? So like, really, it makes a big difference, an appreciable difference.
100%. I can totally relate. And I feel so grateful. I just had a baby. Well, he's 14 months now, but I am so grateful for having what I have at home. And my husband also works from home. So we're both so lucky to be there for our kid, and still run our business, still do our work. And it's great to have employers who accommodate that lifestyle.
Like, what would you do if like both of you had to work out of the office, right? With a 14-month, it's right. You would have to get a babysitter, a nanny, or whatever, maybe a family member.
Yeah. Which is so challenging, especially now with the pandemic and social distancing and all that. It's just, so it's great how things are evolving. And I just wanted to check in with our audience and let you know where people are coming in from. It's a global audience, so this is exciting.
This is cool.
So hi, awesome. Rachel from Mississauga. Hello, Melinda from Dallas. Hi, I'm sorry your name didn't come up, from Stratford. Hello, Katinth from Chicago, Ahmed from Kuwait, Chris from Charlotte, Sherry from San Fran, Mallory from Houston, and Elias, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, from Singapore. So cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Hello, Diana also is tuning in. Diana YK Chen, and Ricklin Woods is tuning in as well. So hello, everybody. So now that we know that the future of work is really changing permanently for the better, what do you feel like job seekers should be really conscious of or be considerate of as they're going through their job search in the new way of working?
See, to manage expectations, what I'm seeing in the market now is this. I wrote about the job report today. I'm losing track of time. I think it was today or yesterday. It blurs. And it really wasn't good. You know, there was like, what was it? Like 700,000 plus people filing for unemployment. So for the people who are looking for a job now, to manage your expectations, it's still going to be soft. For folks who are a little older, they're used to, you hit January, you hit February, and the wheels start turning, and that's when they hire. It's going to be a little different this year because I think personally, the companies are waiting to see what's going to happen with the vaccines, what's going to happen here in the US with the new Biden administration, what's going to happen with the $1.9 trillion that Biden wants to kind of put into the economy. And I think companies, when there's not clarity, companies like to hold off on hiring or even make, downsize people because there's uncertainty. But once I feel the vaccines are rolled out, there's an injection of, money into the economy, I think all of a sudden the wheels are going to turn really quickly, and you're going to see a lot of pent up demand. Businesses reopen, restaurants reopen, hotels reopen, and then before you know it, we're kind of off to the races. So short term, don't get frustrated, don't get stressed out, don't feel bad about yourself. It's not you. It's right now this weird waiting period. But once we get past that, I think it's going to be awesome. So keep doing your search, keep moving forward, keep being active, but don't stress out if it doesn't happen right away.
I think that's such great advice, and that aligns with what I've been telling my clients as well. Is really, you need to be patient. Know that a lot of companies are kind of flying by the seats of their pants right now. It's very challenging for everyone, and also when you say having that empathy for people in hiring as well, I think is important. Would you agree?
Yeah, and the sad part is, I noticed there's a lack of empathy a lot. I don't
Mhm.
mean to disparage any companies or any human resource professionals or talent acquisition because they have a really hard job to do. But I think what happens when you have so many people looking for a job and so many resumes are submitted, after a while, I think it's hard for people to see them as humans.
Yeah.
It's a piece of paper, you know, it's a profile, and they lose some of that. And I think for job seekers, what I've seen, both in my recruiting business, in my personal life, and through WeCruitr, is people get so devastated. They get their self-esteem erodes. They lose their self-confidence because they feel like, why am I being passed over? You know, why am I getting ghosted? Why aren't I getting feedback? And a lot of it isn't because of them. It's, as I mentioned, it's just going slow now. And I
Yeah.
guess it's like a doctor who's seen it all and they lose their bedside manner. So you don't get that feedback. You really don't get this stuff. And it's tough. So my message to them is just to understand it's the bigger picture. It's just not you. It's happening to everybody. Not that it's going to make it all better, but at least you know you're not the only one going through this. I would say like most everybody's going through this right now.
For sure, for sure. It's truly tough for all of us, and yeah, as you said, in some cases, it's kind of a wait and see type of
Yeah.
game. To your point about managing expectations, I wanted to hop over to one of our pre-submitted questions,
Sure.
where a job seeker wanted to get some clarity around how kind of the recruiter job seeker relationship works.
Okay.
And like, are there different types of recruiters? What should they expect from a recruiter? How invested is a recruiter in a job seeker's career? Maybe you can speak to that a bit, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So here's the real deal. Here's the insider scoop. And I'll get kicked out of the recruiter club for spilling the tea on all this. All right. But I'm going to do it anyway. See, it's all like a lot of things. You want to know where's the money and what's the financial incentive. And for recruiters, there are basically a couple of different buckets. One is contingency, which means, and that's the way that most of them do. Contingency is this, you know, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Barclays, whatever, they'll have a job order. They'll come to someone like me and say, hey, Jack, can you fill it? But then they'll go to you, to your firm, and say, hey, can you fill it? Then they go to Diana YK Chan and go to her firm, not as a career coach, but as a recruiting firm, you know,
Yeah.
for the sake of this conversation, and say, can you do it? So now you have like 5, 6 different, you know, agencies that are all trying to do that, find that candidate.
Right.
They also post the jobs themselves. So it becomes this like race to see who could get that candidate first. Now, if you place somebody, recruiting fees could be like 20 to 25% of the base annual salary. So it's a fair amount of money. So if you're making 100,000, the recruiting firm could get 20,000. And that's where the motivation comes. So if you have a recruiter that's like hounding you and like stalking you like a maniac, the reason they're doing it is because they know if I get a hold of Kamara, I know she's perfect for the job. She can get an interview and get the job. She's going to be happy. The company be happy. I'll be happy because I'm going to make a placement fee. So I'm going to be all over it. Now, if let's say Kamara isn't right for it, I'm going to be like, hey, Kamara, yeah, I got to go. Because the more time I'm spending with you, I'm losing time because my
Right.
competitors are going after the ones who could get it.
Right.
So there's the contingency. By understanding the incentives of it, you can now know why recruiters act the way they do. And do they have the interests of the job seekers? Yeah, because you need the job seeker to make the placement so you could get paid and make money. So they have a financial interest to make it work. And if you say, and here's a problem too, if you don't have the right background for it, instead of a recruiter saying, hey, Kamara, I'm sorry, you know, I recruit for compliance and legal risk. That's not you. I can't really help. They just kind of, you know, brush it off. So people feel like, what's up? Why'd you do that? Why'd you blow me off? I don't get it. So they're left with this misunderstanding, like, I don't get it. So if you have, and if you want to look for a recruiter, you want to find someone who specializes in your field, someone who knows it. Let's say you're in accounting. You want to find the best accountant, and let's say you're in Ottawa. You want to find the best recruiter who knows accounting, knows all the companies in Ottawa, and the type, let's say you're in Ottawa and you want to work in financial services, that knows all the financial services, because they could be the best help. they're going to know the people, they're going to know the culture, they're going to really know how much you pay. They probably place people there so they can get inside information. If you just get any old recruiter, it's probably not going to help because they don't have the connections. So if somebody came to me, from the audience, who's watching, and says, "Hey, I'm a Java programmer, Harvard graduate, Yale MBA, can you help me?" I probably couldn't. I just don't know that space. I just really don't know who to go to, where to send you. I have no idea how you fit. So I really wouldn't be of a help. Does that help kind of give some color? And
big time. I think that helps so much because, and it's a realistic kind of explanation on how the recruiting relationship really works. So I guess for job seekers, really the key takeaway is that you really need to do your homework on finding the recruiters who specialize in your specialty. So don't just be knocking on the door of any and all recruiters. You're just going to waste your time and maybe annoy some people in the process.
Right. Because then the recruiter's like, "I can't help," and then you're frustrated, "Why can't you help me?" And then the candidate would be like, why are you blowing me off? And say, "Well, I can't help you because I don't do it." But then they feel like, isn't that your job? But it's really not their job, because really their job is this: the company gives you that job order, and you're working for the company in the sense they're paying you, but you're a matchmaker and you got to get a mix. So it's a very odd set of, it's a weird combination of things.
Yeah. You don't go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor when you have a foot problem, right?
Exactly. See, you said it much better than me. That's you could have said it just like that, and I didn't have to say anything.
No. I loved your explanation. I thought it was great, and gave great background on really what job seekers should be expecting as they go through their job search. Yeah. So just wanted to note that Jillian is commending your points, and Jillian is tuning in from Brisbane. So very, very global.
Really smart people in Brisbane. Really brilliant people, wonderful people there. Amazing.
Yes, I agree. So if you do have some questions for Jack, please do put them in the chat on YouTube or in the comments on LinkedIn, and we will certainly get to them. I wanted to just touch on one question that came in here from Miss Alana. With technology is changing so fast, new jobs are being created that few people are aware of. How would someone changing careers, find jobs that might be a good fit, but they've never heard of? That's a very good question.
Good question.
Yeah.
I can just tell you kind of what I do. I'm constantly reading, constantly listening to different podcasts, watching, LinkedIn lives like Kamara, just to kind of keep abreast of like what's happening, what are the trends, where are things going, and to spot it. And I think if you do that, Miss Alana, you'll be ahead of the curve, because if you're not looking, you're not keeping your eyes up, it's going to pass you by. So I would make a point of, if you're interested in a certain area, in a certain sector of the economy, a certain type of job, a certain thing, technology, just read everything about it, watch everything about it, look at YouTube videos. I mean, that's what's the cool thing now. Like, you just pick up, you pick up your phone, and within 2 minutes, you're going to be an expert at finding it. So, and I do believe things are going to be changing really quickly. Think about it. We didn't know Zoom a year and a half ago. Now that's all we use.
Right.
And things happen. I think it's just going to keep getting quicker and faster, so that you want to just stay abreast as possible, because your job can depend on it. It could be that all of a sudden the kind of stuff you do isn't relevant, and you're going to have to pivot and reinvent yourself. So you always want to be prepared.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I love podcasts as a source for new information. YouTube, of course. I love hanging out on Twitter. It's kind of incredible how much you can find out on Twitter and who you can connect with there. You're on Twitter quite a bit too, Jack. Yeah. So
this is great, because you can learn so much. I mean, like, if I follow, I like, I invest, I'm in the stock market, so I follow, financial folks there, but then I follow career people, and then like I follow all these areas, and it's amazing. It's like every day I learn so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, Miss Alana, make sure that you are reading Jack's Forbes articles, because that's where I'm learning a lot of stuff, especially about how, the tech companies are really leading the charge in reinventing how we work. So that is fantastic. So let's get go back to one of our earlier pre-submitted questions. So this one came in yesterday, and it really gave me pause because I haven't really thought about this that much, which is, how are we dealing with in-person parts of interviewing now? What have you seen with your clients or your?
It's so weird because they're really very few in person. So it's so, it doesn't happen that frequently. So I would say this, kind of judge how, let's say you're going for an interview and you go in person, you kind of see how they act. Are they putting out their hand first? Because people have different risk tolerances.
Yes.
We've all seen it. Some people are completely freaked out. They're wearing 10 masks. Others are just not wearing masks at all. Some people social distance. Some people go to big parties. And for the interview, you want to feel out how that other party is. Now, it doesn't mean if they're not wearing a mask and you feel you want to wear a mask, definitely do that. But you could kind of you pick up on their vibe. The same thing like you pick up on the cues for any kind of interview, how they talk, how they act. And then you try to kind of, act accordingly. So it's really doing it a little bit on the fly to see how it goes. I am not a big fan of when you see somebody and then you got to touch their elbow or do something like that. I drew the line. That's just too, yeah. That also, yeah.
I've never done that.
Yeah, it's too weird and awkward. Yeah, that's really too awkward and weird. I'll say, no, maybe not.
It's a little odd. Yeah. I mean, I think as job seekers, especially my Canadian impression and suggestion would definitely be to go in wearing a mask. And that's at a minimum. I think you need to go wearing a mask because the mask is more so about protecting other people, less yourself. So, but I like what you're saying. Take the cues, pick up on the cues from the other people, your future employers, and then, follow suit, I guess. So yeah, that was a good question because I guess what you're seeing is most of the interviewing, all of the interviewing almost is happening virtually.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what are for the jobs that you're hiring for, you're using Zoom for interviews mostly.
Yes.
And are there any other forms of interviewing that are being used?
I like Google Hangouts.
Oh, okay.
Those are so simple, so easy to use. So Facebook FaceTime, I'm not really a big fan of. I don't dislike them, but I would say Zoom is the first one. And then Google Hangouts, if people use that, to me, that's super easy. They just updated it.
Right.
Yeah. So those I do that for my office, how we keep in touch with each other. We'll have it on all day long where everyone's working remotely, and it works pretty well.
Oh, that's great. I used to use it. I'm glad they updated it because I think it's better now. Yeah. Before it was a little glitchy, but I'm glad to hear you like to use it because I'm also a Google product fan.
Yeah.
So we just got a question from Melinda here, and she's a classroom teacher. She's looking to change careers. Is there a place to start for someone to help me showcase my transferable skills? What's your recruiter take on that, Jack?
Well, number one, I would say definitely find a really fantastic career coach, and someone like maybe Kamara, perhaps, or some of the other folks who are here. I would definitely, check them out and see how they could do it, because from a recruiter's perspective, here's the challenge, and for recruiters, and this is another thing that leads to frustration, when a company gives a recruiter assignment. And like we talked about before, they pay a pretty hefty fee. So they want to find somebody who does exactly what they want. If they have a job description, with 10 ingredients, they want you to have 12 of those 10 ingredients.
Right.
They want you to plug and play, hit the ground running, everything. So Melinda, if you would speak to a recruiter and say, how can I do whatever it is you want to do and transfer it over, it might be a little tougher, and you may walk away from the conversation feeling a little dejected because oh, wow, this recruiter doesn't want to help me. It's because unless there's an exact teacher in, the private sector doing something that they could move you over, it might be really hard for them. So I would suggest that maybe speaking with a career advisor, a career coach, who then could tease out what have you done as a teacher, And then what do you want to do next? And which of those skills, the experience, the background could cross over to what you want to do, and then figure out what's the next type of job, how it could work over, and then you have to sell yourself to make that move. So when you go on an interview, you could weave that story. So they go, oh, okay, that makes sense, Melinda. I could see why, even though you didn't do what we do here for this job, a lot of the skills you picked up as a teacher cross over.
I think that's great advice. And to your point, the employer wants 12 of the 10 ingredients. Yeah. You have to know and be able to communicate how you're qualified for the job. Like that's just a non-negotiable. You have to. So I'm glad you brought that up. So yes, definitely work with a career coach. I'll second that.
A good wingman, huh? Right?
Yes, thank you.
Right? Good hype man.
Thank you. So just a reminder, if you have any questions for Jack, make sure to get them into the chat, into the comments on LinkedIn. And please, if you're on YouTube, give this video a like. If you're on LinkedIn, give it an interaction of some sort, one of the 5 or 6 interactions that are permitted. So one thing I want to ask you about, Jack, is standing out during this pandemic as a job seeker. In your work in recruiting, what are you seeing? Like, how are job seekers doing a really good job of standing out at this time?
I think one of the big, well, okay, if you don't mind, can I go the opposite? Like, what thing people do that they really,
yeah.
I think a lot of people, and my heart goes out to them because I could understand it. You know, they've interviewed, they're sending out applications, nothing is happening, and they kind of give up. And then when they do get an interview, you could feel they just don't have it. They almost go into the interview expecting to fail. And then the hiring manager picks up on that. And then they're like, okay, especially in a market like this where a hiring manager feels there's so many other people, let's just go move on. So to stand out, I think what you have to do is you have to be really aggressive. You have to be really assertive. But you don't have to be a jerk to do it, but just you have to stand up for yourself. You have to respect who you are, your background experience, know what you want to do, and then just go after it. And you have to keep going after it. And you have to, and you're gonna account, you're gonna get that, you could get criticism, you're gonna get rude treatment, you're gonna hit into brick walls, but you can't stop. You have to keep going and going and going. I know you're going to say, hey, that's easy for you to say, but that's the reality. I think to get ahead in this kind of environment, you can't lay off the gas. You pedal. You have to keep moving. You have to keep charging going forward, because if you don't, you'll just fall behind. If you're just going to stay home and fill out applications and that's it, I don't think that's enough. You want to find out, what companies do I want to work for? Who at that company do I know? Who can I find that knows somebody at the company and get them to get my resume in front of that right person? Is it easy to do? No, it's hard work. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward for me to go to Michael Hammershire and say, hey, Michael, can you get my resume in front of so-and-so? It's awkward. It's uncomfortable, but you have to do it. It's one of those things you just have to do it, because if you don't do it, nothing's going to happen. No one's going to go knocking on your door and say, here's a job for you. It's not happening. The only way it's happening if you have a really wealthy family and they, big shot somewhere and they give you a job. But if that's not you, then you're screwed and you got to do it on your own, and you got to move forward. I see so many people on LinkedIn who they're looking for a job, but they don't do anything. Maybe they'll put up a motivational quote or what have you, but that's not going to get somebody enticed to say, okay, who is Kamara? What is she about? Why? Like, how can I help her? So you have to make yourself known. You want to really have a footprint on LinkedIn. You want people to see you. You want to link, you want to connect with people who could help you out, that you could help them out as well. And as I mentioned before, you want to just really find insiders to get you in there, because that's the key. Whether it's a recruiter, whether you know somebody who you went to college with who works there, maybe somebody down the block from where you live, know someone who knows someone in the company, try all of them, because you never know which is going to be the one that works. So you want to try everything.
That's such a good point. And basically what I'm hearing you say is you have to be your own job search advocate, really. And you have to also be able to clearly communicate what you're targeting. People can't predict and they can't read minds. And I would also say, given the time that we're all in, this kind of collective struggle, so to speak, I find people are more apt to and more responsive to requests for, like, can you give me an intro? Can you pass my resume along to whomever? I feel like people are more responsive to that. Is that your experience as well? Yeah.
I think they're more responsive and they're around,
Yeah. Like they're around.
I got to tell you, when I have conversations with people during the day, sometimes I can't get off the phone because this is probably maybe the first human contact they had in a while, in a phone call, a Zoom call. And they're like, oh, I finally have someone new to talk to. Cause you have like, let's say my family, you have all the people that are here in the house and that's it. So you get someone else to talk to. Like now I can't shut up because I'm like, hey, I have someone new to talk to. So when you're thinking, don't think you're a burden. Look at it differently. Look at it like, hey, you're getting in touch with someone who's probably sitting home, watched every show on Netflix, every show on Amazon Prime, and they have nothing else to do. And you're saying, can you help me out? And they're like, sure. What do you need? Let's talk. Because now this is someone new to talk to. They'll feel good about themselves. It gives them a mission. So don't feel like you're imposing. Feel like, all right, person's probably not doing anything much anyway. So this is what to do.
That's right.
They can help you out.
That's right. That's such a good point. Oh, yeah, I love it. Actually, kind of like adjacent to what we're talking about, one of this pre-submitted questions was about, like, I think what they're asking about is the hidden job market. Like, what's happening outside of the applying online and networking? Like, how would someone, like, is there a backdoor way to get a job? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's kind of what we were talking about. I think what they're referring to is let's say I really want to work for ABC Widget Company International. And, I'll kind of look on LinkedIn to see who works there, who's in a spot that maybe could hire, and then introduce myself to them or find someone to introduce me to them. And they can kind of get me in there to see what's going on. Recruiters serve that purpose a lot because oftentimes when companies give recruiters jobs, they may or may not be posting it to the world. So having a good network of recruiters, you don't have to have just one, you can have a handful. So they may have access to these jobs before anybody else. And I think that's really key in this market to stand out because so many resumes are being sent over, so many applications, and it's easy to get lost. But if you could have an advocate for you, if you could have someone champion your cause for you, to me, I think that's kind of what they mean by the hidden job market, that they're jobs that companies have, but you just have to have the right person at the company who knows about it, so they could kind of, then if you have the right fit, they could introduce you for that opportunity.
That's great advice. And actually, I'm wondering, because I'm sure you get bombarded with messages on LinkedIn on a daily basis, right? What is the right way to send a message to a recruiter that would actually get a response?
I think the right way is this. And this would hold true whether it's a recruiter, whether it's someone who you want to help in terms of networking to get something, whether an HR person, is to have, whether you want to call it your elevator pitch, your value proposition, whatever you want to call it. And this I find a lot of people have trouble with. You want to be able to articulate, here's what I do, 1, 2, 3 bullet points of what you do. Here's why I'm good for this job. And this is how you could help me. So that when you reach out to a recruiter or someone else, then they're like, oh, okay. Because what'll happen is one of two things. They'll say, oh, I can help you because what you described is really right up my alley as a recruiter, and I would love to help you. Now, maybe I have a job now, or I could say, I don't have that job now, but I do get the jobs in that you're talking about. So let's keep in touch. We'll link in together, I'll follow you on Twitter, vice versa, and we'll keep that, connection. So when something comes in, I'll let you know. Or they could say, thanks, but I really don't. And this happens to me quite often. Like, I don't do that. I don't really know that area too well. But let me see if I could find somebody who does and turn you on to it. Give you an example, just at random. I was doing a LinkedIn Live with this recruiter, Brent, and he deals with logistics and supply chain, whatever. And I was asking him, oh, what do you, and he does like the executives and salespeople there. It's like, what about the truckers? He goes, I don't do it. I go, wait a minute. I think I know some guys, some people who, recruit for that. Let me put you in touch with them because maybe there's a synergy there where you could help one another. And so I'm doing that. So sometimes, you don't know where it's going to come from. And even if it's not a right fit, you could find somebody who can do that right fit for you.
Fantastic. That's great, great advice. And while we're on the topic of recruiters, Sarah is asking, is now a good time to be a recruiter? Do you see the recruiting industry changing like everything else? That's a good question.
Recruiting is like a really disgusting, horrible business. It sucks. so if you want to do it, but I just want to be really upfront because it's, it's like dog eat dog. It really is. It's you are, if you play somebody, you make money. If you don't place, you don't make money. And so it's like you're gambling all the time, every day. And you have to have a really strong stomach to go through that. I think though, it depends what sector you're in, because some sectors will be hot. For instance, if you're a recruiter in hospitality, in restaurants, in hotels for the last bunch of months, no good, no bueno. That's not cool. Right. If you're in tech, placing software people at Amazon, probably pretty good. So you want to pick your spots. So to be fair, Sarah, it depends what you want to do. And then what kind of recruiter? If you want to be an in-house recruiter, then that's way better because at least you have a set salary, you have benefits and all that stuff. And then I would suggest you want to be in an area that's growing, that's moving forward, so you don't have to worry every day about your job. So to be fair, it depends if you want to be an outside recruiter, in-house recruiter, but definitely find a hot growing area. I mean, I was fortunate because I came early to compliance when people thought it was a very backwater kind of job where like no one cared about it. The recruiters all wanted the sexy investment banking and trading jobs. And I'm like, I don't have much of an ego and I don't care. So if all of them are concentrated over there and this is wide open lane for me, hey, nice. I'm going to take that wide open lane and do it. And that's where I kind of went that direction. And then I was a little bit of lucky because all of a sudden there's just scandal after scandal after craziness. And the business just boomed like crazy, just like out of control beyond my wildest imaginations. So I lucked out, but if that didn't happen to me, it probably would have sucked. I probably would have stayed, but it was just like an amazing run. So
that's incredible. I don't think that was luck because that was obviously a very smart decision on your part because compliance will never go anywhere. Yeah. Regulations are just going to get stricter and stricter, right?
I think that's what's going to happen now too. Yeah. See, that's what I'm also excited about. I think what's going to happen, not to be too wonky, nerdy, but with and it's not politics, just is what it is. Yeah. When Trump was in office, he was very upfront saying, hey, I'm not a fan of regulations. And, the banks aren't stupid. They're like, oh, I see what you're saying. We don't have to worry now and hire these people. Fast forward to now, you see the whole Reddit, day trading, short selling hedge funds. You just feel Elizabeth Warren is just yelling at everybody, hey, you got what's going on here? So you can see it's going to really uptick. So that area, I think it's going to really grow pretty dramatically. So yeah, so I think for the recruiter question, if you could find something that like is growing, but not a lot of people are in there yet, and you could get on the ground floor, then it's good. If you're just going to go in a crowded market, I would say, nah, not so much.
Great advice. Great advice. And just one comment came in backing up to one of your earlier points where Chris mentioned that he knew someone who did what you were recommending before in terms of reaching out, and she was offered a role. So that's
nice. All right,
yeah, Chris. I love stories like that. And it was a marketing role, and she willed herself to stand out.
Yes, that's right. That's what we're talking about. You have right. That's a good way of saying it. You willed yourself to make it happen. It's like you're going to do it. You're just going to kind of make it happen. Absolutely. Yes.
I love it. Great story, Chris. And Sarah says, thank you for your advice. So
my pleasure.
A question came in from Joan here. When you're older, is it better to look for consulting or full-time? I feel that they want experience, but they think you won't be staying for a length of time. Oof. So what do you encounter from kind of those? This is kind of an ageist. This happens when ageism is a problem, right?
Joan, it's interesting. I literally this morning was on a panel talking about like how to get a job for people 50 and over. Mm-hmm. And I've written about this at Forbes a lot, about kind of ageism in the workplace. And it even goes to like, now it's like even late 30s. And so I think, Joan, in part, and maybe I'm naive, but I think in large part, it's not necessarily the age. There's a couple of other factors. I think with somebody who's, let's say, 50, 55, 60, they've been in the workforce 30, 40 years. And usually those people will make more money than someone who's in the workplace 5, 6 years. And when you're in environments like this, where they're trying to keep costs down, they rather get the younger person, not that they dislike the older worker, but the younger person is so much less expensive to pay. So let's say in New York City or San Francisco, or like, what's a very expensive city in Canada? Like
Toronto.
So
Toronto and Vancouver. Yeah. And Calgary.
Toronto is, you rather get someone in Saskatchewan. Is that cheap? Is that a lower cost place, or
lower cost of living than Toronto?
So they rather have someone younger in Saskatchewan and pay like 30% less or 40% less. So it's not the age, it's the it's the compensation. What I tell, and I'm not a career coach, but like if I have an older, client who's going to interview, is know that they're thinking. Like if you go to the interview, there's a bubble over that person's head, and they have all these stereotypes of an older person. So you want to dispel those myths right out of the gate. So you want to come in. First of all, you want to make sure what you're wearing, if you're in person or over Zoom, you want to make sure what you're wearing is current, your hairstyle, your glasses, whatever. So you're not judged by that. The language you use, you want to make sure you surround yourself by younger people. You want to be around Gen X's, millennials, Gen Z, so you pick up on what they say, their cultural references. So then when you interview, they can feel, oh, wait, this person, maybe chronologically they're older, but they kind of get it. Then you also want to say something, Joan, like this. You want to say something, hey, I understand that I have more experience than you're looking for. However, I really love this job. I love the opportunity, and I don't mind about the title, or I'll even take a cut to salary because I'm so passionate about what you're doing at this company and this particular job and working for you, Kamara, that I'm going to be open. So you take away that argument they're worried about, oh, is this person going to be full of themselves? Are they asking for too much money? You kind of get that right off there. Then you can say, hey, I understand, Kamara, the hiring manager, you're much younger than I am, but I feel that's great because I can learn so much because you have a whole different viewpoint than I do. And this is what's going to get me excited because I'm going to learn more. So you position yourself where now they're looking at you no longer as an older person. They're just like, oh, okay, I get it. Does it always work? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But at least you go that, but if you go into it thinking, oh my gosh, I'm old, they're not going to like me, it's not going to work. So you want to make sure you're current. And I know this sounds so like crass, really, or superficial, but yeah, you just have to make sure that you come across that they can relate to you. Because what happens a lot, what I've noticed, when you have people who are, let's say, 50s and older, oftentimes, and I'll get this from candidates I work with, they'll be like, well, look at my resume. It says it all here. I'm like, dude, come on. I mean, you got, that's not going to get you the job. You have to tell what it's like. And they feel aggrieved, like, why do I have to sell myself? And well, you do. Or you have one of these people say, well, I've done this for 40 years. This is how it's done. I know what I'm doing. And then who wants to hire someone like that? You're like, you're going to drive me crazy. So you have to kind of work on how you come across. And so it's not, I think it's not such the age, it's the compensation. It's if you come across as bossy and overbearing. So you just have to kind of tinker it. But I would say this is for anybody. You know what I mean? Like how you interview. You have to kind of modify your style. You have to figure out who your audience is and speak to your audience. So I don't know. I know I threw a lot out there, Joan. So I hope that gives some at least color on it.
Those are all great points. And I think what it really comes down to, and as you said, this is advice that goes for anybody, is you need to be relatable. You need to be a coworker that someone would like to have, is how I see it. So
I love how you can boil it down in like one sentence when it takes me like 5 minutes to say. That's so cool.
Oh, no. You're too kind.
You just say it like, boom, there you go.
No. I'm just processing what I hear you saying, and you have great advice, and I'm sure Joan will find that helpful, and everybody tuning in will find that helpful. Speaking of being like a good future coworker, we had a pre-submitted question, which kind of we're kind of turning the tables in the hiring equation. And I think someone who does hiring is curious what your take is on where the talented people are. Are they hiding out? Are they laying low while they wait for the pandemic to pass by? What are your thoughts?
I think so. I think there's a lot of people who just want to keep their head down, hold on to their jobs, wait it out, and not do anything. I want to say not do anything, meaning just not make a move. These are folks who are employed. So you're with a company, even if you're not loving it, but you feel, you know what, there's so much uncertainty, so much going out there. Let me just ride out. So yeah, it's really hard. So and it's tough because last few days, and this is encouraging, got some really great assignments to work on, and I go out of my way to tell the companies that are giving to, bear with me, because there are a lot of people who just don't want to move right now. They're afraid. And I don't say afraid like making fun of them saying afraid. It's understandable because they don't want to take the risk. And what if it doesn't work out? What if their boss finds out and they lose their job and they're out of work during the pandemic? The risk reward doesn't seem to be there for people. So to them, they'll just stay tight. So it is harder. It's much harder to find that talent. Do people move? Yes, but not as freely. When it's a hot market, people will move much more aggressively because they feel, hey, I go take this job, maybe I'll make a 10, 15, 20% bump up on my base. That's fantastic. If, God forbid, it doesn't work, well, you know what? It's a hot market. I could just ride it out for a year and get another job and get another increase of 10, 20%. When it's a bad market, or scary market like this, it's like that risk is not there, and they may not pay as much of a premium to get you over, and then you get a new job. Like I was just speaking to someone this morning, and he was like, "Jack, this is so bizarre. I got my job, like a month before, or like a few weeks before pandemic, everything closed. So like I was in the office like 2 days, and now I'm just working from home, and it's just weird. It's awkward." If I would have known, I would have just stayed at my other place because I just feel, out of it. So it is a thing. I think I've seen it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I think people are quite hesitant to make the move with unemployment so high. Even if they're currently employed, with unemployment being so high, it's like, well, what if? Even if they, as you said, even if they don't really love their job, what's the saying? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you feel, okay, I know what it is now. It may not be great. It's not horrible, but at least I have it. I know I'm safe. So, okay. Because then think about it. So let's say you get another job and it's only a 10% raise. After taxes, it's not a lot of money. So then you're like the risk reward quotient, and this is crazy coming from a recruiter because you would think I would just push people to move, but I don't. Because the risk reward, you have to analyze it. There's more of a risk, than that, little bit more money, especially if you're not miserable. Now, if you're miserable and hate it and your boss is just the worst, well, all right, that's different. Then it might behoove you to do, to kind of get out there.
Right. As a recruiter, you also do want people to stay in their job. You don't really want them, like if you place them in their job, you want them to stay in that job in which you place them.
Yeah,
right?
And you know what it is too? Like one of the reasons I lasted so long, because I'm not going to BS people. You know what I mean? I'm just going to call it the way it is, or the way I see it, because I want them to trust my judgment. And if I'm like, pushing them to do something they don't want to do, that's not cool. They're going to be unhappy. They're going to feel I'm too pushy and annoying. They'll tell their friends, don't deal with Jack. He's an annoying jerk. Or you take a job and they leave. And that for a recruiter sucks, because if you go for a job and then you leave, somehow it's the recruiter's fault. Like, what happened? And then the firm hates you. The candidate hates you. The hiring manager hates you. It's just not worth it.
Not worth
Not
it.
worth
News travels quickly.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
No, definitely not. Well, that's some great insights. And from earlier, Joan just said she appreciated your advice. So that's
Joan,
great. Thank you very
afterwards,
much.
Joan, you know what? You could hit me up because I could introduce you. There's a lot of groups that will discuss the kind of questions you have, and I could turn you on to them. Yeah. There's like this guy, Ken Lang, who has a lot of these LinkedIn online things where his group skews like 50s and up. And I could find out some others so that if nothing else, Joan, you have like-minded people who you could kind of just brainstorm with, and see what they do.
That's so great. Where should Joan reach you? Should she message you on
Yeah,
LinkedIn or?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Joan, I've tagged Jack
Yeah.
in this post, so you can just find his profile that way if you haven't already connected. So wonderful. That's fantastic. All right, wonderful. So wanted to talk a little bit about your venture, WeCruitr, and I said it right. I said it right. WeCruitr. So on Forbes, I was reading your byline a bit on Forbes, and you talk about making the job search more humane and enjoyable. And that's what it sounds like. That's what inspired you to launch WeCruitr.
Yeah.
What really sparked WeCruitr?
So, combination of things, and one to be really, upfront is that when I was saying earlier how with the last administration, compliance wasn't as hot. So, you saw it wasn't as hot, and then all of a sudden you hit the pandemic, and things were, generally really, getting quieter. And I'm like, all right, so I have a little bandwidth. I'm stuck at home. My kids are grown, so they're self-sufficient, and I have time now. And I've always wanted to do something with recruiting. There's only so much time. Like you're doing this, so you can't scale up that much. So I figured, what can I do that can maybe be scalable to help out a lot of people? So, and to be fair, I didn't think it would last this long. I'm an optimist. So seriously, I remember my wife brought home like a box of those masks. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
what are you doing? Come on, like when you come a box, this is gonna be like a week, 2 weeks. What? So I never done it. But then when it started going on, I'm like, oh man, this is for real. And I was like, hey, let's try to do something. So started WeCruitr with the idea just to help people. And for myself and my team being recruiters for so many years, could kind of show people, here's like the basics of interviewing, how to get an elevator pitch together, what to do in an interview, how to negotiate a salary, what should you do about a resume. To have these we meet up kind of Zoom calls where a bunch of people on there, and ask me anything, kicking around ideas, sharing ideas. So that's the whole ethos of it, to just, really trying our best to help different people. And, my core recruiting is really within, Wall Street and the financial industry, but this is like, people all over, all walks of life, everywhere. And it really struck me that I found, Kamara, a lot of people didn't know how to sell themselves, how to market themselves, how to have an elevator pitch, what to do. So, I spent a lot of time just kind of trying to help do that because, they would say, hey, I'm interviewing, nothing's happening. And they're like, oh, hey, you want to role play an elevator pitch? And then you realize, oh my gosh, they're going back to kindergarten to talk about what they did then. I'm like, wait,
Oh boy.
Come on, wait, that's not you're going to lose your audience. You can't do that. So it's really just really about helping people, trying to get them back to work. And like the coolest thing ever is like, when someone gets a job, we have a Facebook group and like everybody's congratulations with gifts and balloons and, all that kind of stuff. So
I love that.
it's really nice because you have this like support network where, because I found out early on that what was happening is I would speak to people, as a recruiter or like when we started with WeCruitr, that they felt it was like just them. And it blew my mind where they're thinking, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Even though you would see the headlines about how many people losing their job, still they felt like, why me? This didn't happen to me. This is the first time it happened. And then when they're surrounded by other people like themselves, and they look around, they go, oh my God, these people all seem normal and nice and smart, and they're going through it. So, all right, I still don't have a job, but at least I feel a little better.
Yeah.
because it's not just me. And you could almost see the relief, like this, like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you know what I mean? And you could almost feel they're going to go home to their partner and say, oh my God, see, you know, it's not just me. There are all these really great people who are going through this too. So it's a really cool experience.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Sounds like a real passion
yeah,
project. And
yeah,
I can't imagine how many job seekers are getting so much value
yeah,
from this. And that's so generous of you to be doing this in addition to recruiting, which
yeah,
I'm sure has geared up again.
yeah,
Um,
which is good. It has. So it's,
yeah.
yeah.
That's fantastic. And Diana just wanted to commend you as well for your desire to help job
Well,
seekers.
and
And
she's doing the same thing.
yeah,
And you know, Diana was kind enough to have me come on her summit, and it
yes.
was awesome to talk. And yeah, she does great work and
Yeah.
helping people. So you know, Diana, you know, Vincent, and he's going to hate me. I'm spacing on his last name, who has Viten. You know, so there are a lot of people out there who are really trying to help. And to me, the way I look is, if we could have a lot of people who do that, just make things so much better. You know, like, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be starting a whole platform. It could just be, a little random acts of kindness and niceness to help out, folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that Diana's summit was incredible. And just as a little plug, you can catch Jack's session and my session, because I spoke during the summit as well, on YouTube under Diana's YouTube channel. I think it's under Diana YK Chan, could be my marketability. But that was a great summit. So kudos to Diana, kudos to you, Jack, for everything.
You're doing the same thing, but what you're doing here, you're giving out information, you're helping people, you're bringing people on, to share different ideas from different perspectives. So that's, good for you.
Thank you.
I mean, and that's, I think if more people did stuff like you're doing or Diane doing and other people here are doing, it'd just be so much better, because we spend too much time. I don't know how it is in Canada. I think you guys are nicer than us here in the US, but if everyone
I don't know about that.
nicer, and not just yelling and hating on each other, things would be so, oh my God, be so much better.
Well, thank you. Some of the kindest people I know and my closest friends are Americans, so I can't say anything negative.
Nice,
and I can't say Canadians are better.
It's nice, but seriously, it's really been a very toxic atmosphere for the last few years. And again, this is not politics. It just is what it is. You know what I mean? Just this weird combination of everything that just made it really like people at each other's throats. And
yeah. Your nation has been going through it.
Yeah. That's why I
going through some stuff for sure.
That's why I really am a believer. It's like, everybody, you know what? We just, instead of saying, okay, I'm just going to go on Facebook and fight with somebody, instead of doing that, all right, do something nice. Try to help somebody out, Well,
you are a living example of that. So, and Diana just wanted to point out her replay of the Real Launch Summit is on her YouTube channel, Diana YK Chan. And speaking of YouTube channels, you've got your YouTube channel, Jack, which I think is WeCruitr, right?
WeCruitr Media, yeah.
WeCruitr Media, okay. Yeah. So for those of you tuning in on YouTube, I've linked Jack's YouTube channel in the description of this video. I've linked our chat from last week in the description of the YouTube video as well. So make sure to check that out. It was a great chat. What else, or where else can people follow you, get in touch with you? What are your social media channels of choice?
Probably lately, I've been all over LinkedIn, probably annoying everybody, probably too much. So you can easily find me on LinkedIn. Because you know how they say, like, you should only post once a day or once every few days. I post like a maniac. I'm figuring, you know what? let the algos be mad at me. I don't care. Like the same thing I say to candidates. You know what I mean? Go for it. Yeah. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and you probably get, you get a lot of great content, but you're going to get annoyed by getting too much content probably. But sometimes the algos throttle it because they're like, stop, would you stop sending stuff out? Because I have my articles, from Forbes. I pretty much write one every day. And then I started a blog, because with Forbes, you have to be pretty uptight and serious. And so I started the Kellington Times, which is kind of a little bit more irreverent, a little bit more edgier, where I could say things that, you you can't in a major publication. So, but it's all about, so you definitely check that out and subscribe to it. It's really just about, really centered for people's careers, but it's not like a career thing. It's more like news, what's going on Wall Street, what's going on in corporate America, what's happening, with Bitcoin, what's happening. So as I mentioned earlier about like with the age thing, I think for all of us, you want to know like what's happening, what's going on, what do these changes mean for my career?
Yes.
Hey, if Bitcoin is hot, does that mean maybe I should look for a job in the crypto space? And so on. So that's what I'm trying to do, with that, to put the pieces together so people can get a roadmap like, oh, here's where things are going. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't work. Here's what's happening. And so that when you go for interviews, you have conversations and you could, pull out of your hat. Oh, yeah, the Reddit Wall Street bet traders. And they were, brought before, Congress today. And that goes a long way when you interview and talk to people. That shows like you have a really good grasp of what's happening.
That's such a good point. I was watching a video recently about how to have interesting conversations and keeping your thumb on the pulse of current events.
Yeah.
So important, especially if they're, as you're saying, kind of in your specialty.
Exactly.
You should really be aware. So the Kellington Times, where can people subscribe to that?
I don't know. I mean, for the Kellington, the KellingtonTimes.com, I'll have the subscribe button, but also on my newsletter, I'll have it, and I put it on LinkedIn. So yeah, they can hit.
Oh, okay. Okay. So people can go to your LinkedIn profile and find more information. Okay.
And then you can go to KellingtonTimes.com or or have both the domain names, the Kellington Times and KellingtonTimes.com.
Okay.
There'll be like a subscribe button. And then on LinkedIn, when I post, we've been posting it every day, which is ridiculous. I'm exhausted because I have to do a lot of writing. So
yes.
So we've been, doing it pretty much every day until I'm going to, hopefully I don't drop dead from exhaustion.
Oh, please don't.
So you'll get to see it and it'll keep you really know what's happening.
Fantastic. So really everything that everyone needs is on your LinkedIn profile. Yeah. We've got your YouTube channel. WeCruitr is WeCruitr.io, right?
Right. The two, because like people confuse. So we have WeCruitr, WeCruitr.com. So you want to be cool to have it like that. That's, but then a lot of people didn't know how to spell it. So then we put WeCruitr with the E, WeCruitr.io.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I hope I linked the right one in the YouTube video. So I'll have to double check that.
Yeah.
And then Twitter, right?
Yes.
We can also reach you on Twitter. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. And that's your handle is WeCruitr. Or how do we reach you on Twitter?
It's WeCruitr, like with the _IO.
_IO.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
I should have made it much easier, right? Like I screwed up. I should have made that name way easier than I did.
I was reading your FAQs and I had a chuckle because it says, is WeCruitr really spelled without the E? And it's like, yes, we're not changing it. So I love that. I love that joke. In any case, we're past the top of the hour, so I really want to be respectful of your time, Jack, and thank you so much for joining us on Office Hours today and sharing so many insights, great insights and expertise with our audience. And I know everybody really appreciated it. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. This was a blast. I had a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Was it helpful?
My pleasure. Thank you. Oh, very, very. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you again next Thursday.
Excellent.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.